Hi, I'm Srinivas Kantheti, the founder and CEO of VLCMI Private Limited, also a brand named as Bazaar. Very happy to be here today with you people.
The Indian two-wheeler market is really a shining example of how India has progressed and evolved. In the pre-liberalization era, the brands that we all knew of in the two-wheeler space were mostly Japanese brands like Honda, Suzuki, Kawasaki, Yamaha. But really today, the Indian brands completely dominate the market. And one of the most admirable Indian brand is Bajaj Auto. Srinivas joined Bajaj Auto at the stage where it was transforming from being known as the maker of Chetak to being known as the maker of high performance bikes like the Pulsar or the KTM. In fact, the Pulsar was launched within a year of Srinivas joining. Over the next decade and a half, Srinivas saw up close and personal that amazing transformational scale up journey of Bajaj Auto. And we talk a lot about his learnings from that journey. By the time Srinivas finished 15 years at Bajaj, he decided to do something of his own and he stuck to what he knew best, the two-wheeler market. But this time he decided to approach it from the lens of financing as a way of improving access to two-wheelers. Now, you may think that financing is really a done and dusted market. I mean, it's so easy to get financing when you walk into a showroom, but really if you go into tier 3, tier 4 cities, if you're trying to buy a used bike, then the problem of financing still exists. And this is really a massive opportunity that Srinivas's startup, Bike Bazaar / Wheels EMI is chasing. And the way they are chasing it is by really using a full stack approach and not just looking at simple financing, but then also building solutions around retail, around quality check, around helping customers feel more assured when they buy a used two-wheeler. And the proof of the hard work they've done is in the fact that they've raised more than $50 million till date, with the most recent round being of about $20 million. This conversation is a must listen for anyone who really wants to understand the evolution of the two-wheeler market in India and some of the up and coming opportunities in this space. You're listening to the Founder Thesis podcast, and I'm your host, Aksheta.
I actually joined the Tata's, a company called Tata Electric, okay, where I was very keen to work on their new 500 megawatt power station, which had come up at Bombay. And so I was there for 2 days exactly when they transferred me to, I think, a 5 megawatt substation power station, somewhere in the remote corner of Maharashtra. And after 2 days, I quit the job and I just walked out and said that, no, this is not for me. I quit my first job in 4 days. And when I went to for my interview for the second job, and that's when the HR manager said that, no, how can you quit a job in 4 days? And what's the guarantee that you would be here with us? And that this was a multinational Siemens. And so I told him, I said that, look, if I stay for 4 days, that means you can take it for granted that I'll be here for a long term. So I think that answer really helped me. I got the job and I worked there for 12 solid years with Siemens. I did all kinds of things, mainly I was in the front end of the business. So I was a product manager, the link between sales and factory. So it was a techno-commercial job, selling switchgear, switchboards, motors from the head office. Was transferred to Germany for about 2 years. So worked there in Germany at Erlangen. And Germany was very different during those days. You could not get along there without knowing the language. So I learned the language and I was pretty fluent in German and did well there. Came back and then worked further. And Siemens sent me to IIM Ahmedabad as they have this 6-month program for working executives. So it's a full-time 6 months program. And I think that exposure was very good because it opened up a whole lot of new world for me, which was just beyond hardcore electrical engineering and what you're doing. And when I came back, somehow I started feeling that I need to spread my wings. I need to try something else. And also the family was growing and I was looking for a little more money. I had 2 kids by that time. And that's when I went to a headhunting company and asking for a job. And instead of them finding a job for me, they actually made me an offer. And so I joined the headhunting company as a headhunter without knowing anything about
ABC Consultants.
Yeah, this is ABC Consultants. So Dr. Agarwal, it's pretty legendary. So, and it's a very strange kind of a company, ABC Consultants, and in the sense that 90% of the people working in ABC Consultants were engineers, and they would never hire a single HR guy actually in the company. It was a hardcore, headhunting recruitment company. They actually wanted domain expertise. They wanted people who had worked in the industry, people who had done actual sales, marketing, production. So we had all these kind of people, and I think the background also is that they used to run industrial consulting extra earlier, but they mainly became a headhunting company. So this is where actually I would say that two things happened actually there, I think, or three things. The first is that it was a job wherein I was independently responsible for my branch. And if in the end of the month I did not make enough money, I would not have money to pay salaries. Okay. But of course, it was not that bad. I could always call up the head office and they would send money for the salaries. But that was a shame actually. That was, you don't do that. So it really made you an entrepreneur, that you're running your own show, and almost whatever money you made, 15% of the money was, no, I think 25%, 25% of the money was yours. And obviously to be distributed among your colleagues, team, and how you distribute was left to you. And so there were very good management techniques which people evolved over time. I would say that was the first thing. The second learning that I got, of course, was that various industries, it was from IT to engineering to FMCG, exposed to various industries, exposed to various functions, and you are interviewing these people before you put them up for the client. So you learn a lot. Okay, I think that came out very fast. And the third, of course, was that at least I got to meet a lot of entrepreneurs, because as a company, when we would go, we would actually try to meet the CEO. Of course, the HR person was also important, but we'd also try to meet the hiring manager, the CEO. And that's when you get a lot of exposure at a very young age to these people, actually, as how they think and how they act. So these are the things which I really learned there. Mm.
I just had one question. So, like consulting companies, like say EY, KPMG, they have like this whole partner track, and the people working in it also become equity owners after a certain point of time. So, what was ABC like that? Like the global consulting companies?
Yeah, I wouldn't say exactly like that, but in fact, it had something really much better, in fact. And one is that you were straight away a part of the profit share of what you were making, really. Okay. So that was straight away coming to you because it's a private limited company. Okay. And when you do well, as a headhunter, and you really make a good amount of money, decent amount of money you make. And the second is that I joined them, and within 3 years, I became a director on board. So I got promoted thrice and then became the director on board. So which is pretty good. When you're a director on board, you are actually then your profit shares also go up significantly because you are then controlling a much bigger span of people. So I would say that it was a great experience, but I really was not cut out to be a headhunter all my life. Okay, in this sense that I was still missing the big company, the big thing, big excitement of big company. And I used to get offers from almost a lot of clients whom I was consulting with. So that was a very normal kind of a thing which would happen. And so one of the days I made a mistake. I headhunted one of the most, what you call, important guy from Bajaj Auto out, actually. And the process of headhunting is pretty painful in the sense there's a 3 month, you have to handhold for 3 months so that the guy is still very much interested. He's still going to join your customer, your client and all that. You owe it to your client and all that. And many a times the dropouts happen within the 3 months period. Okay. It can be quite frustrating many a times. And in this case, actually the dropout did happen. So after a month and a half or so, after extensive handholding, etc. And he was held back, and he was held back by none other than Rajiv Bajaj, okay, who at that time was the vice president of the company, the son of Rahul Bajaj, but still not taken over as the MD, etc. He grew up the ranks. So it's a fantastic guy, College of Engineering, Pune, gold medalist, comes from that background, then goes to Warwick, works in the shop floor, works on R&D, okay, and comes up from the bottom really to an extent. So he held them back, and then he wanted to know who's this headhunter who did this. And so this guy called me up and said that, oh, look, this guy Raji wants to meet you, but I have not told him. I said, no, I have no problem. I always like to meet people, so let me go and meet him. And so I met him, and somehow we clicked off well. And then he started giving me assignments, and which I was doing. And that's when I think at some stage he asked me that, are you going to do this all your life, or do you want to do something bigger, and do you want to be more ambitious? And that's when he offered me a job as human resources head at Bajaj Auto. At the age of 39, I go there as the head of human resources. Never done human resources in my life. In a mechanical engineering auto company, I knew a lot about auto companies because a lot of them are clients. But I'm an electrical engineer, not mechanical. Okay. And so it was a small team which Rajiv had put together, and I became a part of that team. And the rest is history. I worked there for 15 years. And before I left, I was the president of the auto finance business and then the president of the motorcycle business. And I would say that a lot of my maturation, a lot of my learning is actually from what I did at Bajaj and or what I learned at Bajaj. And the kind of opportunities Bajaj Auto gave me was fantastic. I don't think any HR guy would have got that kind of jobs. When I was running HR, I was doing assignments on marketing, sales. I was doing all kinds of things actually. So somebody used to ask me, "Are you really HR guy? I mean, what are you doing?" I'm not actually. So it was a great 15 years. I can talk about it a little more detail. And this is where the learnings actually happen.
Okay. So the two questions I have. One is, of course, what were those learnings? But the second is the finance part of Bajaj is in a different group, right? Like Bajaj FinServ or Auto also had a finance division in-house, is it?
So a little complex in the sense that you're right. The finance division is the Bajaj FinServ part of it. But when I joined in the year 2000, there were only two companies. There was Bajaj Auto and there was Bajaj Auto Finance. Okay. And I was there during the process where there was a holding company made and Bajaj FinServ was separated out and Bajaj Auto Finance went under Bajaj FinServ. Two insurance companies got opened up and all that. So, in fact, for a long time, I was helping out on the HR side for even Sanjeev. And because Sanjeev was there, Sanjeev Bajaj was there in the Bajaj Auto, and he knew me very well. And I was working along with him. He used to handle exports earlier and all that. So, did all that. In fact, I was involved in the hiring of Rajiv Jain. So, when at some stage it was decided that the auto finance part of the business of Bajaj Auto Finance, which is the captive finance, needed a separate way to handle, needed a separate person to handle. And I created that structure that though it will be in the residing in the FinServ, but there will be a separate set of team which will be handling it. Okay. And they will work very closely with the Bajaj Auto team because it's a captive finance thing. They will be co-located, they'll be together, but ensuring that all the profitabilities, everything are maintained and it goes there. So it was a bit of a complex kind of a thing which was drafted. And then they were looking at somebody to head it. And that's when I told Rajiv, I said that I had enough of HR. Now I'm going there. I literally almost forced him to put me there. And so that's how I went to the auto finance part of the business and ran it for 4 years, actually. And pretty successful 4 years. And that's when I got promoted to president. And then when Sridhar, who used to head our motorcycle business, left, Rajiv brought me back to Bajaj Auto saying that, no, you now head the motorcycle business. So that's how I was very lucky to handle three critical functions and even in fact, four. There was also the pro biking part, which I handled for some time, which now finally has become KTM. Okay, we set up company-owned stores across India. So about 30 of them at that time. And they have now become marquee showrooms for KTM now.
Okay. This was when Pulsar was launched and they wanted a more...
Exactly. Yeah. So a few years after the Pulsar was launched in 2000, the year I joined. Chakan plant was also launched at that time. And I think after 2-3 years after that, we thought about doing this pro biking and saying that we also had the Avenger, or it used to be called as Eliminator during those days. So we had only two products. We had the Pulsar 150 would still be sold out of all showrooms, but the Pulsar 180 would sell out of the pro biking showrooms and the Eliminator. And slowly, of course, products got added.
The Pulsar 180 was the first bike I bought. Once I started earning a salary, that was like the first purchase I did with my own money. So what memories of that?
Yeah. And actually, the Pulsar 180 was always bought by people who really knew about biking, actually. Because otherwise, it looked exactly the same as Pulsar 150. There was no difference at all. But, it really packed a boom.
Yeah, it was definitely for enthusiasts. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, like, if you could encapsulate, what were like the things you learned there? Like, it could be in terms of learnings about the business levers or learnings about org building or running large organizations?
Yeah, I would say that it was a huge organization. It was very big. When I joined, 17,500 people. Okay. I was coming from an organization which had a total of 120 people or 150 people. So here, suddenly 17,500 people, its own hierarchies and all that. And also the fact that Mr. Rahul Bajaj was still very much active in the business. Okay. He was the managing director of business. And so you were exposed to him, and especially HR, certain decisions, whether when you're hiring certain level of people and above, he would meet them, he would interview them. Every year, your appraisals, every year, your etc. finally had to be signed off by him. So it was like a very, very, I would say, all the complexities of a large business. But one of the things that I learned, and I'll not talk too much about auto and all that. Of course, I learned a lot about auto. I learned about this and all that. But I think one of the 2-3 things. First is, of course, is the fact that organizations evolve over a period of time. And this evolving or the changing of the organization, when it happens, there is resistance, of course. But the best way to actually make the change happen is to be very fast and firm about it rather than drag it a lot. Okay, so just to give you an example, so when I joined, we were 17,500 people. In 4 years' time, I brought down the number to 6,000 people. Okay, now, so every year, luckily Bajaj also was financially pretty good. This is still financially very good. So we had money to actually do the VRSs, to downsize people, because the organization mindset,
Downside was because of modernization. Like you didn't need so many people because of modernization.
no, I would say it was because of a mindset change, or a change, complete mindset change, which was happening within the organizations, saying that we were but Bajaj Auto was essentially a manufacturing-led company. Okay? Everything revolved around manufacturing. So if you look at during those days, you had huge machines which were not flexible, which were machines which can do the same component 100 times, etc. But if that model goes away, those machines can take a hell lot of time to retool or whatever it is. And we had everything in house. We had heat treatment in house. We had a press shop in house. So the mindset was changing from being a manufacturing oriented company to becoming more and more a marketing and a R&D oriented company. So the skill sets were becoming very different than what you wanted. Okay, so and also how to variabilize your cost, because at the end of the day, a business is risky. So if you are able to together, for example, do you really need to run a press shop? Okay, or do you really need to? So what was done was 10 key processes were identified, saying that these 10 key processes we will never subcontract, we'll do it ourselves. Everything around that had to be then subcontracted out. And I think during those time we had something like about 800 vendors or something. They were brought down to 125 or 150 if I remember. Okay, so tierizing the vendors and ensuring that you have lesser number, focus on quality, focus on this, because the market was changing. The entire condition had changed the market, moving away from scooters to bikes. Okay, so I think first thinking out the strategy, and second is that single-mindedly driving it. Okay, without getting distracted is what I learned from Bajaj Auto. I learned from Rajiv, and he had also fantastic guys like Pradeep Srivastav and Joe. Joe was the youngest R&D head at Bajaj. He's the guy who did the pulsars and all those things. So it was a very, very vibrant young team on one hand, okay, trying to make all these changes. And then, of course, there was the other generation which was there. So the shift is never easy. And as they say, you need a lot of conviction in doing it. And especially when you are also dealing with a very, very aware person like Rahul Bajaj, who would question everything. And you cannot get away with just saying that I'm doing what I want to do. You'll have to give all the logics, etc., and all that. So I think that was a fantastic learning. So this is one part I would say, is that change happens and you better be a part of change and you do it fast. The second learning for me was that the entire business about not being me too, and about brand. And this is what is helping me in my current business also, is that creating a differentiation. And I mean, during those days, you remember when I was working for APC and all that, everybody wanted to put up a power plant. Everybody wanted to put up a cement plant. I did some work for Raymond's, for example, the organization. They were doing everything. They had a cement plant, they had a steel plant, they had everything. They had an airlines, they had a hospital, they had a school. Okay, of course, they were doing textiles and all that. And they had a condo business, and I mean they had all kinds of things so happening. And when you come to a company like Bajaj Auto with Rajiv and clear focus, saying that no, I'm a motorcycle guy, I'm going to do only motorcycles, I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to create a brand, I'm going to be differentiated there. And when the whole world was making 100cc bikes, I mean, he had the gumption to go and do a 150 and a 180, Pulsar. And I was there during those famous meeting, which he keeps on quoting, wherein McKinsey had actually told us, why are you dancing around the market by bringing in a 150, 180cc product and how much you're going to sell, really? Okay, and you can't even make a 100cc bike. So how are you doing this kind of a thing? And their suggestion was that we should focus on the 100cc rather than trying to do this Pulsars kind of a thing. So that's where the learning came from. The whole world is now also talking about how you need to focus, how you need to differentiate. And also the fact that focus means sacrifice. That means you can't do certain things. So in my company, people keep on asking me that they say that in finance business, we are essentially in the finance business today. We are building also a marketplace, but with the finance business, they keep on saying that there's a concentration risk. Why only two-wheelers? Why you're not looking at least do cars, at least do at least do trucks, at least do three-wheelers. Just add a few more wheels. I have to keep on telling them that no. Our expertise is two, and we need to focus on two, and that's what we want to do actually.
Yeah, it's very hard for an entrepreneur to say no. That's a rare skill. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is. And I keep on getting tempted. And I would say that it's not as if the temptations don't come, but then I keep on going back to my old learnings and doing that, what, even 4 or 5 days back, there was this company which was available, in some way, which was doing on truck financing and said, oh, no, we don't know anything about trucks. Let's not get into it. Everything is different. Just because it has 4 wheels, it doesn't mean it's 2 motorcycles put together. The whole world is different. And that's where I find the financial services industry a little funny, because there its opposite is true. The people don't like concentration risks. So they feel that if you're diversified across segments, if something happens to you, then but then you end up making very little money if you're not a specialist.
So, how did that move happen from being part of the leadership at Bajaj to being a founder?
Yeah, I think it was, I had promised myself long back that at the age of 55, I'm going to retire. Okay. And I was close to that. And it was in 2014. Yes, 2014. When I went and told Rajiv that, look, I would like to now take a break. I would like to leave. And I would like to do something else altogether. So we had a long chat, and he obviously was not not very happy initially. But then Rajiv is very fair in his approach always, and he said, "Okay, all the best." And when I went to meet the chairman, Mr. Rahul Bajaj, he was a little more upset than me, saying that, "Really, you want to leave? So, and what are you going to do?" And so I had certain thoughts in my mind. I started a consulting company, and wherein I did a lot of work with companies like Escorts. So I was part of their management committee to advise them in the transition from being again a multi-product company to becoming more of. So they had the machine tools. They used to make. They used to have this various other than tractors. They had small operations. Okay, so got them to sell a couple of them. Got the merger happen. Did the same thing in terms of manpower, variabilize the cost, etc. So Nikhil Nanda, so worked very closely with them. Good friend even now. Okay, so I was doing that, and that was when my other co-founder, Karunakaran, who used to work along with me in auto finance, and he continued to work in auto finance, and he has almost his entire life he has spent in the two-wheeler industry, and both at the OE side and also finance side. And whatever I learned of finance, I learned from him actually. So I didn't know anything about finance at all. So all the learning came from him. So he came to me one day saying that, he was quitting and he was joining a competition as CEO. And that's when I asked him, he said, the same age as me. And I said that, don't you think it's time that we do something ourselves? We are past the stage of wanting a secure salary. Bajaj paid well. Bajaj really pays well. So we had money to take care of at least our needs, if not luxuries. Children were getting settled. So he also liked that idea. And that's how we thought that, we would start something on our own. And at that time, we were dabbling with the idea of doing microfinance, because microfinance was at that time, a very hot subject. And some of our friends actually had become entrepreneurs and they had done very well, actually. But then when we sat and we discussed, again, the first principles, going back to the first principles, we said that, look, we don't know anything about microfinance. So let us actually look at two-wheelers. That's what we know. And that's how we started off. And I went back to Rajiv Bajaj and I told him, look, you know what? I'm going to start a two-wheeler finance company. And so he asked me 10 questions as to what is my differentiation? What is it that I can do which Bajaj Finance cannot do? So I think I had answers to all those questions. We had thought about it.
So what were those answers? Like, if you can.
So for that, I have to talk about the industry a bit then. Okay. And let me do that. So why did we select two-wheelers? Okay. Okay. And there are three main reasons for selecting it. The first reason I already told you, that the fact that we know two-wheelers well. Okay. So we know two-wheelers, and mostly everybody in the two-wheeler industry knew us. So that was a big advantage, but knowing is not enough, right? This is a business actually. The second was that India is the largest market in the world for two-wheelers, and it is by far the largest. And even today, the penetration levels are still much smaller as compared to countries like Indonesia, other countries which are also large two-wheeler markets. China, for example, is a large two-wheeler market. So if you look at that penetration, they are about family-wise about 120% penetration. India is still lower. Now it's 60% penetration. So still there's a lot of scope for penetration to increase in India. Okay. And the other fact is that as far as up to, I would say now up to 250, 300cc bikes, and you live in Japan, so you know this well. I think the Indians have now more or less reached the level at which a Japanese would have been there. And sometimes they've started beating them also at cost. So if you are a Harley Davidson, say, for example, you cannot survive in the world unless you have an Indian partner. I'm not talking about surviving in India. I'm saying you can't survive in the world, because if you have to sell, look what happened to KTM. it was almost bankrupt. And then comes in Bajaj, ties up with Bajaj. Bajaj picks up stake in that. All the lower CC bikes, it makes at 35-40% cheaper price because all the cost is the design. It is not in manufacturing. I mean, you can take out certain costs out in manufacturing. Of course you can. But how you design the product and how you do it itself. So when you have a twin kind of a strategy of a brand, similar engine going one in a KTM and one in going a Pulsar, but the KTM being as a brand priced 40-50% higher, okay, you completely change the rules of the game. And this is what Bajaj did. So the reason I'm telling you this background is also that we believe that India has also started becoming the R&D center of two-wheelers now. Okay, so Triumph has followed now, and you know, BMW has tied up with TVS, and now Ali is tying up with Hero. So you can see that happening basically. So we said two-wheelers is going to survive. It's going to be a great business. And as and when electrification happens, two-wheelers are the first ones to get electrified. So it's a great industry to be in. Okay, so this is the second reason about the industry. And the third final reason was that while they were competitors in the market out there, first, they were much lower than as compared to cars. For example, if you want a car to be financed, you have almost every bank falling over you to finance it. You want a two-wheeler to be financed, you'll rarely see a bank falling over you. You rarely see a Bank of Baroda or SBI coming in, giving a two-wheeler loan. So the number of competition was low because it's a small ticket, very challenging, very collection intensive. The second is, of course, is that there were a lot of open spaces where nobody was focusing on. And that's what we wanted to go to. So we didn't want to just because we are from Bajaj, we didn't want to just pick up the phone and talk to all the Bajaj dealers and saying that, look, I am now in the two-wheeler business. And of course, they would invite us because they're our friends. But how can I compete with a Bajaj, which has funds at 30% cheaper than me and has a huge history of background with them and is a capital finance company? Okay, I can't compete. So I have to choose my battles. And that's what we did.
What was which area did you see as underserved that you could establish yourself in?
So when you look at the entire two-wheeler industry, one of the things which struck us immediately, and it was such a aha moment at that time. And I still remember, in fact, Karunakaran, my co-founder, has the date also written down somewhere. I don't remember the date. So we were sitting in the Pune club and we were having a beer. And that's when we were discussing this. And we said, hey, hold on. I said that. I said, hey, hold on. There's nobody who finances second-hand two-wheelers in India. Okay, that's a two-wheeler industry, right? Now, so the point is the moment you think two-wheeler, people think only about new two-wheelers. Okay, so that's the first mindset shift and said second-hand two-wheelers. We said, yeah, that's now, of course, it has its own challenges. There's a very good reason why people have not got into it. Okay. But the fact is that there was that market available there. It was the space which is there. And today, after 5 years, we are the largest financier of second-hand two-wheelers in India. Okay. And it's a highly profitable business. It's a business which can be done very nicely. And it is a business which has moats built around it because one of the big car startups, I'll not name it, car startups, thought that doing bikes is like doing cars itself and didn't realize that a 40,000 rupee bike, if you want to go and do a 120-point check, which they claim they do in the cars, okay, you cannot send a man to do it then because you can't afford to do it because the cost structure will never, let you do it actually. So you need to have a very good understanding of the two-wheeler industry. You need to understand what to buy. You need to understand which to finance, etc., and all that. So that's where the moat started building around it. And you were able to do at a much higher price so that's where we started actually our journey. And that's one example. We have many such examples. So the second example, for example, is this entire almost 40% or 50%, like 54% of the market today is in the semi-urban and rural towns of India. And as you start going to those towns, you see financing starting dropping down. The finance penetration itself overall is about 50%. Now again, finance is 50% penetration as car finance penetration is about 85-90%. And you know that the two-wheeler prices have been going up steadily in the last 2.5, 3 years. Now it's almost 30% higher than as compared to what it was 2-3 years back. So financing is becoming more and more important. And as you start going towards tier 2, tier 3 towns and the smaller villages, the number of financials start dropping down drastically. And that's where then we saw open space, wherein I wouldn't say there's zero competition there, but I would say there's very less competition, wherein we could go. And that's when we did a very interesting product at Bajaj, which used to finance customers who didn't have bank accounts. And so we over a period of time, we refined that product. And now it's a very successful product for Bajaj. Somehow many other financiers tried to do it, but they were not able to do it.
How do you do that? Like financing without a bank account?
See, it's no rocket science, but it's very difficult to execute. So I think it's all about execution. And this is inspired from the fact that when I read The Banker to the Poor, there was one sentence which stuck in my mind. It says, it's not as if the customer is not creditworthy. It is banks which are not customer worthy, actually. Okay. So just because he doesn't have a bank account, or nowadays he has a bank account, a lot of people have bank account, but they don't use the bank for a lot of transactions. Okay. So it doesn't mean that he is not credit worthy. Okay. And so first is that that mindset change. Say that, "Key, I don't need a repayment instrument if I give you a loan." Okay. See, today it's unheard of that you give a loan without a repayment instrument, because you take checks. During those days, so you used to take checks. Now you take a NAC mandate. You take a mandate every month. It goes to the bank, and the money comes out and all that. And the idea is that if it bounces, you can take legal action against them. You can put Section 138 or cheating, etc. You can do all that kind of stuff. But when I go and ask people that how many Section 138s you are successful in a two-wheeler loan, the answer is zero, actually. Okay. So removing from your mind the mindset that I need a repayment instrument, so I don't take a repayment instrument. But I tell them that you have various ways to pay me. You can pay me through Google Pay, you can pay me to any of the digital payments. But more important, he can walk back to the dealership, and in many cases, it's actually not a dealer, but a sub-dealer from where he bought the bike. And every month he can go and pay his installment there. Okay. And create a complete ecosystem around it. So there's a lot of tech involved in it. It's not just like that. Cash has to be handled. It has to be done properly. So all that has to be done. And so that was a model which became very successful at Bajaj, and we took the same model and replicated it, and we started doing it for other companies. So we do it for Hero, which is very big, especially in the north. So for Hero, we have been quite successful in penetrating the Hero market. We have been quite successful in looking at, now Honda we're looking at that. So this is another example of going into a territory where the competition is lesser, where you have an expertise in some way, okay, develop it. So I guess that has been my most important learning at Bajaj. Like, we have kept on saying no whenever anybody wants us to come to Bombay to do new vehicles, or Bangalore to do new vehicles, or whatever it is. We said, no, what is it I can add value? I can't. There's no value I can add.
If you like to hear stories of founders, then we have tons of great stories from entrepreneurs who have built billion-dollar businesses. Just search for the Founder Thesis podcast on any audio streaming app like Spotify, Gaana, Apple Podcasts, and subscribe to the show.
So tell me about that 0 to 1 journey. You had something in mind, but I have generally seen that the best laid plans, when they meet reality, that, things change, and there is always a period of struggle, and until you fix some faulty assumptions and find that product market fit and the right way of doing things. So I'd love to hear about that journey.
Yeah. Let me just, before I answer that, just add that it's not just the 0 to 1. Actually, it's 0 to 5. It's happening every time. So I think every day our assumptions are getting questioned, rightly so, not questioned by anybody, but by the market. And you are changing. As I said, the first movement for us was that second-hand vehicles. I said that let's do. And in second-hand vehicles, actually, to see the entire industry of two-wheeler second-hand vehicles, it's actually run by mom and pop shops. People call them brokers, but that's not a good name to call them. They're not brokers. They really invest in stock. So they are unorganized retail outlets. Let me put it this way. So you go to, say, for example, Hyderabad, and you go to this market, and there you will see, in the about 100, 150 of these small dealers were selling. So it's a two-wheeler market, actually. You go, you can buy, sell, and these people have been doing it for generations. So that is the place where we wanted to get our customers from. That's the easy way of getting customers, rather than going a direct route to the customer, basically. How do I know somebody wants to buy a second-hand vehicle? So you go to that market. So this is how we did it. When we started doing this, and I still remember the first month of operation, we were supposed to do, I think the number we were supposed to do, we had started only Pune and we had started Bangalore, only two cities. And we said the first month we'll do 100 vehicles.
How did you fund it? Like, how did you get an NBFC license, or were you tying up with NBFCs and
No. So what we did was, right from the beginning, we said we will build a book of our own, okay, at least initially, because it takes time for people to understand this. And so we went for an NBFC license. So we bought an existing company. We got a transfer done. We changed all that. We also were looking at funding. And so again, it's one of those lucky moments when I asked somebody at EY, whom I knew well, saying that, look, how do I do this? No, this is something which I had never done. Okay. At Bajaj, one thing I never learned is how to raise money. Okay, because I was never in the finance department. We didn't need to raise money, actually. Okay. And even when I was in auto finance, the treasury was common. So Rajiv Jain's team was raising money. So I just had to tell them, I need so much money, and they would bring it in, basically. So we said how to raise equity, and debt, of course, is that. So for equity, so I asked this EY guy, and he actually put me up to a PE fund, a VC fund in Bangalore called Elevar. And I went there and met Sandeep and Jyotsna, and I asked for an appointment. And one of the things about Elevar is that the first meeting in Elevar, is always done by the decision makers, which is very unlike any other PE fund. In fact, I don't even understand how PE funds are able to do this, that they have the junior most guy talking to an entrepreneur who actually has gone through the journey quite a lot. And because you need to make a decision somewhere fast. So Elevar exactly turns it on his head and say that, so first we will meet. And if so, I think I still remember I had my laptop, I had my entire business plans made, everything ready. And I went there. So Sandeep told me, no, just shut your laptop. I don't want to see anything. Just tell me about something. And see, I think not about 45 minutes or 50 minutes down the line, said that we are very interested. Just get back to me with your detailed plans and we are very interested. And that's it. So, and I was going on a holiday. I said, I'll come back from the holiday and then I'll talk to you. So I came back from the holiday and he met my team. We had already created a team and they agreed to fund us. And we sat across the table, haggled a bit. And I agreed to it. And then I came out and said, hey, I hope I not got gypped. So then I called a friend of mine who was in the PE business and I told him this is a valuation model. He said, no, you got a good deal. So that's it. Now, the problem was that we had that funding, but we didn't have a company. So we had to rush it, choose all the company and all that. So anyway, that was the initial source of funding was equity. So we raised 23 crores as a first round. And Eleva funded it actually. So when we started in this first one, we were supposed to sell about 100 odd vehicles. 100 vehicles, and we financed a grand total of 2 vehicles in that month.
Was this like through the tie-ups with the dealers, the second-hand vehicle dealers? Okay.
Yeah, we did all the tie-ups, we did everything. See, we had an app, etc., and all that, but we knew that these guys are not going to do any such thing because, first of all, financing itself was new to them. Second is that, so we would have a guy who would be hanging around the market. He had the app, he would put everything, and we would do the credit and we would do the disbursements and all that. See, and remember, so we have worked at a scale which was huge at Bajaj Auto Finance. I was doing 10,000 odd crores, so that only an auto finance business. And here to downsize your thinking and come back to that level is not very easy. Okay, but we were doing everything ourselves. So, and 2 vehicles we did. And I said, shit, this is like really something is wrong with.
Was it because customers were not there or your approvals were not allowing you to, like you were not able to approve?
No, the customers were not there at all. In fact, it's not as if our approvals, because we were sitting waiting for the customers. I mean, it's not as if we rejected a lot of cases or something like that. So then a lot of funders started saying that we used to disperse the money to the URO, unorganized retail outlet, the broker. So they would not like money to come into their account. They wanted cash. We said we can't do cash disbursements. So all this, the reality started hitting. And then that's how we started then working along with them, working along with their chartered accountants, taking RCA, explaining to them. GST had just come into that country. Okay. GST was also evolving. So I think those were the fears. So the dealers, obviously the UROs were not obviously pumping for our product. And in India, you have to meet a person at least 3 times before he starts telling you what really he has in his mind. So they don't want to displease you. So they'll say, no, this is very good. We'll have to. But actually they would not do it, So I think
inability to say no is ingrained in Indians.
So we started learning a lot. So first thing we also did was that we hired service engineers because we are obviously financing a second-hand vehicle. So one of the most important thing is that the quality of the vehicle, and secondly also the valuation. How do you value the vehicle? So obviously, so these people started going and they would value the vehicle and all that. But we also realized that in the long run, this cannot work. When you're going to scale up, when you have a huge number of vehicles, you cannot keep on sending your service engineer. You need a battalion of service engineers to do it and all that. So also developing our own grid, evaluation grid out of our experience.
That grid was like an algorithm, basically, like you would input data points like color, model, make, and how many owners, and then it would throw up the valuation, something like that.
Yeah, so that's exactly what we thought we should do. But thank God we didn't do that, because we realized very quickly that all that matters really is for the price is that what is that bike and what is the brand and what is the year, and a reasonable amount of guarantee that the vehicle engine is in very proper condition. That's all matters, really. Nothing else matters. Okay, so it's all theoretical, the rest. Especially because you are doing a vehicle which is costing like 35,000-40,000 rupees max. Okay, so that's the kind of thing. I know that an Activa has a higher resale price as compared to, say, some other scooter. Or I know that your Splendor has this. And then I know that a 2017 model will command this price. Because it's at the end of the day, it's about that pricing actually is what it commands. And ensure that the vehicle is not a lemon. Okay, that means basically I've seen that people who go and buy, they know how to check, the outs. They check the brakes, they check the battery, they do all that. The only thing they are not able to check is the engine. So normally during the good old days, people used to take a mechanic, along with them. So what we finally boiled down to, becoming keeping it simple and keeping it very narrow focus, is saying that I want to know whether the engine is good or not before I finance the vehicle. And so we developed for that actually a method. So we have a recording of the sound of the engine and the smoke. Okay, and based on that, we decide a go no go kind of a thing. Now, over a period of time, we have now a huge database of these kind of sounds and smoke, and we have now started putting that into some kind of a AI-led kind of algorithm, because we also want to now start becoming more and more precise, which says that what is wrong with the engine. Is it a tappet adjustment? Is it just as simple as that, or is it something else? Okay, and how much it may cost to refurbish it tomorrow? Because we are also getting into the business of buying and selling of second-hand vehicles. So
your person would record the engine audio on the mobile app. That was how you were doing it.
Yeah, initially it was very crude that he would record it on his mobile and send on WhatsApp. But today we have a proper app, so he takes those photos and he takes the sound of the engine and takes the smoke.
Smoke, like a video of the smoke.
There's the video of smoke. And since it's an app, we have been able to compress the file sizes quite a lot. So it comes in, and we have about 5 or 6 service guys across India. So it goes to anybody of them, and he just sees it and he approves it on. So we are now seeing what he's approving and why he's approving it. And we are using that to start automating that.
You can use machine learning to
Yeah, exactly. See, one of the complications of machine learning is not actually it's actually the data.
because you need labeled data.
Labeled data. So I think, so we have the data. So we start work. We are working on that. That's how we are looking at it really. So
how did you evolve the product to meet the dealer objections, like the GST concern, the cash concern? Did you change the product, or that was just a education initiative that you had to undertake?
No. So what we did was that in certain cases we changed the product. In certain cases we didn't change the product because they were fundamentals to our business. For example, cash disbursement, we said no, we'll not do this. Okay, there is no way in which we can do it, and I'm glad we didn't do it because today it's working perfect. Nobody is talking about it now. Okay, so I think it was early fears and all that. Similarly about GST, etc., and all that. But for example, we used to insist that every vehicle that we fund should be insured by us. Now there we changed the product because insurance base, we said that it has to be comprehensively insured. Now there are certain products where the product itself was costing 25,000 rupees, and our loan was 25,000. Maybe the product was 30 or 33,000. So at a 25,000 rupee ticket size, for him paying another 2,500 rupees as a insurance product became a problem. So we said, okay, then in these cases, lesser than a particular value, we just do the third party insurance. As it is, the bike has any problem, then this guy will repair it himself or something like that. So in some cases, we change the product. Okay. So I think it's a learning. And Karuna is very good at this. Karan, my co-founder again, he has the ear to the ground. He understands the market very well. And he's the one who keeps our company straight in terms of being very customer focused. Okay. His favorite dialogue is that even when we do anything on tech, for example, he will always ask the tech guy that, are you doing it for yourself or are you doing it for the customer? How does it help the customer? If it doesn't help the customer, I don't want it, So I think that's where listening to them and, understanding from them paid good dividends. And it was also a cultural issue with some of our sales guys because we had hired them from the two-wheeler industry and they were accustomed to going to dealers. And dealers are big guys. I mean, many of the dealers don't even sit in the dealership. They have, a general manager who looks after it. So there's an air-conditioned cabin wherein you sit and you talk, shop, and you then ask him to lift 2-3 loads, and then you come out. Whereas here, this guy is literally on the road. He's sitting there on the road, and our guys have to, interact with him, and sit with him and drink tea with him. And so I think that also took a bit of a time for them to get out of that. Because at the end of the day, that relationship matters a lot. And the people were scared that we may take away their business one day. So that was also another thing. I think when they started realizing that we are not here to take away their business, but their business will actually grow. And almost everybody today says that we have about 550 odd UROs who are registered with us.
What is URO? Unorganized retail outlet.
Unorganized retail outlets. So, and all of them more or less say that the business has gone up by 20-30% after we started financing product for them.
Yeah, that's basically the BNPL promise, right? Like if you start offering BNPL to your customers, your sales go up.
Absolutely. So I think that's it. So, but as I said, the learning never stops. It is there every day of the year. So the other thing that we understood, and it was so surprising when we found out that before we started the second-hand two-wheeler business, we are being very, very professional and coming from. So we did a market survey, and we hired one of the best market survey companies. I don't think I would ever do that again. Sorry, nothing against the market research companies. They play their part, they play their role, but it was too early for us to do that actually. So we wanted to get an assessment, how big is the market and what it is and all that. And they did all that, and it came out that the market is like for 100%. That means for every one new vehicle getting sold, one second-hand vehicle is getting sold. Okay. Now, and I have seen this number being quoted left, right, and center by a lot of people also. But after 5 years, let me tell you, it's nowhere near that. The market is less than 50% actually. And the car market is about 150%. For every one new car, 150. No wonder the second-hand car market is booming today. Now, the reason was, yeah,
That's why there's so many unicorns in that space.
absolutely, unicorns in this space. And as I said, the unicorn trying to do this space, they quickly realize that, ये बड़ा नहीं है, छोड़ दो इसको कर. So if you go beyond 8 or 9 cities in India, okay, the second-hand, these brokers, UROs or whatever you may call them, they don't even exist. So a lot of informal exchanges take place and all that, and people actually do not get good rates, so they don't sell. They just keep on adding the bike. Somebody in the family rides it. So for us, that opened up another stream of thought, saying that we can actually start another stream of business which gets into actually into the smaller towns where we are already doing. I told you about the entire financing the unbanked or the underbanked customers. We are doing new vehicles there. So we said that we can actually start buying and selling second-hand vehicles there and setting up a second-hand vehicle franchisee outlet. And we started doing this, and today we have almost about 25, 30 of them across India. Next year we'll have 100 of them. And what we do is that now we already know how to value the bike. We already know how the quality of the bike we can assess. Now, as I said, we also know what we need to refurbish. We actually buy the vehicle, refurbish it, and sell it off to this franchisee. And we guarantee that there's a 6-month warranty on the bike, etc., and all that, and give the customer a full experience of as if he's buying a new bike. Okay, because he gets a guarantee, he gets a refurbished bike, and we do the entire paper transfer, get the paper transfer done, and also ensure that we do a financing. People ask me that, are you a finance company? Are you a marketplace? What are you? So I said, look, there are two ways in which a business can grow. One is that you go horizontal, which means that I am financing two-wheelers. Let me start financing by three-wheelers, trucks, etc. And maybe tomorrow housing loans and become a generic NBFC. Okay. Or the other way is that I go deeper, and I say that I will do everything around the two-wheeler. And so I'm neither. I'm actually a two-wheeler company. That's what I am. So I want to follow the two-wheeler through its life cycle of 15 years. Okay, 15 to 20 years is the life cycle of the two-wheeler. It changes hands 3 or 4 times. So I want to be there when it changes hands. I want to finance it at that time. I want to refurbish it at that time. I want to buy and sell it at that time. So I want to keep on adding that value at that thing. And then suddenly it opens up horizons of doing things like leasing and things like, all those kind of things. It starts opening up. So I would say this is the learning that I got from saying that, but by being differentiated, while you may be sacrificing on some fronts, on other fronts, you have actually a great advantage of going deeper and deeper into it. Now, imagine a HDFC bank or somebody trying to buy and sell second-hand vehicles. Forget financing second-hand vehicles. Okay, so these are my competition. So they will never get into that. Okay. And that's how it happened with electric vehicles also. And we are one of the, I wouldn't say the biggest, but we are one of the very, very leading, what you call the financier of electric vehicles today. Okay. And I also know that the future of electric vehicles is going to depend on financing. And it is going to depend on the capability of the person to actually finance the battery rather than financing the vehicle itself.
Because battery is the biggest cost component, and it needs replacement in a couple of years, I think.
Actually. So 3 years is the warranty that they are giving nowadays for the battery. But I've seen that if you ride 100 kilometers a day, which a lot of delivery boys, whether it is Swiggy or Zomato, they do ride about 90 to 100 kilometers a day. You need to charge twice and your life becomes half. And 18 months, you need to replace the battery. So we have done extensive work with the riders. See, one of the things that we like to do is rather than talking to the company, we like to talk to the person who's a rider actually. And we got riders to come to our offices from wherever we have offices. We got all kinds of electric vehicles. We made them ride all of them and got a lot of feedback saying that what they like, what they don't like. Ye halka hai, this is light and this is not strong enough. I have to carry so many kilos. and all that. And they're so good at the calculations that they're the only guys who actually have proven to me that, and maybe I hope I'm not entering into a controversy here, but let me say it is that at today's level, unless you're riding at least 80, 90 kilometers per day, the electric vehicle does not break even.
Because of the battery replacement cost?
Absolutely. And the fact that you still have a very, very good two-wheeler second-hand market. The IC engine market is not gone away anywhere. You are getting penalized on both sides. On one side, at the end of 3 years, you are able to make money not make money, you are able to get a residual value for your IC engine vehicle. And on the other hand, you are able to, this. So I think that's where we have started developing specialist products for around this. I'm not saying electric vehicles are going to go away anywhere. They are going to become big. So we need to actually develop right business models around it. So we are doing all kinds of things. We are financing only the battery. We are doing renting the battery. We're doing all that kind of things. So we want to understand what is going to work. For example, we know what is not going to work. So we tried to do this. We said that bring your IC engine vehicle to us and we will give you an electric vehicle, new one, exchange. Because anyway, this has a residual value. I'll take that as a down payment for me. And again, like the first month's experience, we thought we'll do about maybe at least 40, 50 vehicles in the first year. We did one vehicle. Okay, because people didn't want to give up their IC engine vehicle. Okay, so they still wanted that around. And in fact, we had a very interesting proposition. We had one guy who told us, sir, what I'll do is that I will ride my IC engine vehicle and I will come to your office and leave it there. Okay, you give me a electric vehicle and I will ride it for my deliveries. I'll come back and leave it back with you. Okay, so ridership is more important than ownership, and that's what is going to happen. And then finance companies like us, specialists like us, will have to play a very big role in developing products around that.
I want to kind of do like a timeline. So 2017, you did 2 vehicles in first month. How did those numbers progress then?
Oh yeah. So then we started saying that I think within the third month, we crossed the 100 vehicle mark. And the fifth month, we crossed the 500 vehicle mark. Okay. So that's how we started doing. And then I think if you look at our growth,
Pune, Mumbai.
No, then we started opening also there, other locations. Today, now we are present in close to about, including the rural villages and all that places, we are present in almost about 400 odd touch points. We are quite branchless. We don't have branch offices, etc. Everybody operates out in the field. All the entire, disbursement, entire operation, entire processing of loan is centralized at Pune. So we have a backend here. Okay. And so that does it. And so just to give you an example, last year we disbursed about 340 crores worth of loans. And this year we did 650 crores of loans. And next year we are debating whether we should do 1,500 or we should do 1,300. So I think somewhere around that we want to do it.
More than doubling. So what is driving this growth? Is it geographical expansion, or is it that more people are opting for financing? What's the secret behind the growth?
No, I would say that, it is, first of all, we are still very small. At Bajaj, I was accustomed to doing 50,000 vehicles a month. We are doing 10,000 vehicles a month here. We have 1/5. But reaching 10,000 in 5 years also is pretty good. So I think that's a good achievement the team has done. We look at both. We look at the same store sale as well as expansion, both. And it's a very healthy combination of both of it. So our market share has to increase in where we are present. And we also then will open up also newer outlets for this. So that's the expansion. And in the finance business, liability also plays a very big part of your ambition. Okay, for disbursing so much money, you should also have the capability of raising that much money. If you ask me today that, why I'm not doing 7,000 crores, I would say that I can do 7,000 crores maybe given a year and a half's time. But then I have to ensure that my liability side is tied up. Okay, so that's what will limit it, the growth. So that's why it takes time. Okay. So today, for example, we became very successful this year in doing co-lending with a bank. And next year, we are actually planning 50% of our business will be on co-lending. So slowly, now that the model has been proven, now the collections has been stable, everything has been good. We have survived 1 ILFS and 3 COVIDs. Okay. And so I think we have reached a stage wherein I think people have started saying that, yes, they are there for the long run now.
When did you get to new vehicle financing? You told me you're doing for Hero.
So timeline wise, we started 2017, as you rightly said, second-hand vehicles. So 2017, 1 year we didn't do anything. Then 2018, we dabbled a bit in one of the failed experiments of trying to do in the same cities where we were doing second-hand vehicles, which are big cities, try to do some new vehicles, but through a different, distribution channel. not through the main dealer, but through some broker dealers, etc. We knew that it was a little bit risky, but we still thought we had certain things done. But we decided that it's not worth doing it because the numbers were also not that big. That was then the next year was when we actually went rural. Actually, so 2019 is when we went rural, and then it was one hell of a growth actually. And so 2020.
So rural is when you got into new vehicle financing also, because rural is underserved by the traditional banks and
Exactly. So we always knew about it. We always thought, but going rural, you needed at least one company to tie up with you actually, or one company to give you a chance to do it along with it, because there's a lot of dealer dependency and all that in this thing. And that company, while it could have been Bajaj, but there was no point because Bajaj was so good at it. So there was no point in us competing it. So we got a breakthrough with Hero, and then we never looked back. And today, as I said, we're doing also Honda, and we're looking at TVS now. So, and then timeline wise, then the next year we said that no, we have to expand the second-hand two-wheeler business, and that's when we started the marketplace actually. And this year we rebranded our company into completely Bike Bazaar. It is surprising that when I registered the company, I registered both Wheels EMI and Bike Bazaar actually, saying that at one day we'll do the marketplace, but that thing happened a little earlier. And so now we actually go under the brand name of Bike Bazaar, which does a marketplace, which is into basically buying, selling, and servicing and financing. Okay, so you're building everything around the vehicle actually.
So how do you refurbish? You have, are you building that in-house capability to like a servicing center and the mechanic and all that? Or?
We are building in-house capability in terms of knowledge and in terms of driving the customer. Yeah, we are not investing in the in brick and mortar or the infrastructure. So it's basically franchisee model, but branded Bike Bazaar. Okay, and so the franchisee brings in the investment, whether it is buying, selling, servicing, or whatever it is, but directed by us. Okay. So we have an excellent service team. So you follow the complete what you call standard operating procedures, and you do that basically.
So like the franchisee gets a checklist like denting, painting, oil change, etc.
Yes. So yeah, and yeah, all that is there. And we are also started training franchisees on servicing electric vehicles. Okay, now there's a very big misnomer that electric vehicles don't need servicing. Unfortunately, some of the OEs also feel that way. Okay, nothing can be further from the truth, and we have seen it happening extensively. That the electric vehicle needs also servicing. So, and very few service centers around. So we started training our people into, and the OEs are helping us to do that actually. So the idea is that you are a franchisee in service, for example. So you are somebody in between absolute roadside mechanic versus who is a OE driven mechanic or whatever it is, a workstation. So the advantage of this person to tie up with us is that we are able to push customers to him because we are financing a lot of customers. So we have huge amount of database of customers that we can push. We are able to give him our vehicles for refurbishment, which we want to sell further on. Okay. And we have started tying up with insurance companies to do cashless in his dealerships. So he gets that. And the fourth is that he starts getting spares and oils at rates which he can't negotiate and which we can negotiate and get it for him basically. Okay. So that's the model. So you end up owning the entire knowledge structure and the contact structure, but you don't necessarily have to own the screwdriver and the pneumatic lift or whatever it is. That's not needed.
How do you keep the customer with you lifetime? Like you said that you drive servicing. Like if you financed the bike of a customer, you would also recommend a service center. Is it through an app or is it through SMS or what is it like?
Yeah. So again, still a lot of work under development on this aspect. For example, we still don't have a proper CRM. And we just about 3 months back, we tied up with the Salesforce. So we have started developing the entire thing. I think our first a lot of this is coming out next month. So, use once you have a CRM, then Salesforce is pretty good at these things. And once you start doing this, you start actually also developing also analytics and start pushing it. In India, I don't think a pure digital model is going to work. You need to do a combination of digital as well as a call center. Both, you need to do both. Okay. And then you also need to have a place wherein the customer can finally go. And that's where the franchisee comes in. The last mile, in terms of whether it's a buying or a selling or a delivery or a service, will always have to happen either at the customer's doorstep or will have to happen at the shop. And that is where the franchisee network develops. So there are two companies in one which is actually developing the entire tech to push these people into that, and the other part which actually fulfills that journey. So
Okay. And do you rely on any digital acquisition tools, or is your acquisition through the dealer network? Like,
yeah, so I would say that almost 90% of our acquisition is through dealer network. Okay, but we have tie-ups with, for example, we have a tie-up with OLX. Okay, so for procurement of bikes. So whenever we see an ads there and all that, we try to procure it. But the journey is only part digital, because then again it gets transferred into a phone call, and then finally somebody a chat or something, and then finally to doing that. We also have tie-ups with companies which actually push the customers to us. Okay, there are these specialist web companies. One of them are actually seriously looking at us, as a long-term partnership with us. So we actually pull from there, and then part of the journey is digital. In fact, you can have 100% of the journey digital. We have done that also, but we have seen that most of it becomes part digital and part final fulfillment. But yeah, that percentage is small today. Still, it's about 10 odd percent. But I think it will grow, it will develop, and that can be our model by which we can actually even compete in the bigger markets.
so how do you do credit underwriting? Like, is it like a KYC and the person uploads a PAN or something, and then like tell me about how you do risk management?
So again, it depends on the customer and depends on we have 2, 3 products, right? So the second-hand product is acts a little different. The as I said, the rural customer. There are 2 types of rural: one who has a banking habit, and one who doesn't have a banking habit. So the journeys are different. I wouldn't say journeys are different. I would say the rules are different. I would say. So it's basically underwriting. You're underwriting 2 things here. You're underwriting the customer. You're also underwriting the product. KYC is standard, so you need to collect the KYCs, etc. RBI has now started allowing even NBFCs to use the Aadhaar-based KYC, which they had ruled out about 2, 3 years back. So we have applied for it. We'll get it fast, and then the journey will become still simpler. But today, other than Aadhaar, we can look at any other a piece of paper and we can authenticate it digitally, actually. And also our form, which has to be filled up for it, digitally, it actually captures data from your KYC documents. So you take a photograph, it actually auto-populates most of the stuff. Our journey, even today, is not a customer direct journey. It's assisted journey, because even today,
The dealer drives.
yeah, so our person is there, our DMA is, our sales guy is there who actually does this. Okay, but the same thing can become a customer-driven journey tomorrow if you want to do it. He takes all the photographs, it gets filled up, it goes and hits automatically it hits this site, the credit bureau. You get the credit score immediately, and depending on the credit score, there's a rule engine actually. Where depending on the credit score and depending on whether he's a customer who's with income proof or without income proof or whatever it is, it throws up certain things. There is either a fast track approval, wherein it approves, soft approval is immediately given, or there can be an approval which says that this approval will be given only after we do a telephonic verification. Okay, or it can be an approval which can be done only after doing a physical inspection of his place of residence. So 40% of our customers, we do a physical visit. So then the loan would take about a month, about a day to get approved, kind of a thing. Also, a lot depends on what kind of down payment you're putting up. So depending on the bike, for example, if they are these 100cc Splendors and all this kind of bikes or Activa or whatever it is, 100cc bikes, we see the risk much lower there because the resale values are pretty high there. Okay, so we are able to go at a higher LTV. But if the product is a bigger product, okay, and especially if there's a product customer mismatch, then we may not even do it. Or if we do it, we may do it with a higher LTV. Okay, so
What do you mean product customer mismatch?
you are a delivery boy and you want to actually buy a bullet.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Okay, so your income is coming from deliveries. Okay, and so you may not be able to afford the bullet EMIs or neither the maintenance or the. So that's the mismatch I was talking about. Happens because, and there's nothing wrong. People have aspirations and they need to grow up. So it requires a bit of counseling, saying that you don't even have a credit score. So you start with something which is a little smaller and build up your credit score. So that's one of the things which I've seen is that there's a huge amount of demand or there's a huge amount of latent demand for higher end bikes in the smaller towns and smaller villages. Okay, unfortunately, some of the OEs don't have deep dealerships there. Okay, and also you don't have very great financiers many times. Exception, of course, is companies like Bajaj, etc., which does an excellent job of it. So that's one of the reasons Pulsar has grown so well even now is that more and more tier 2, tier 3 people are riding the Pulsar.
Yeah, it has the same appeal of an iPhone for a certain category of people, like having a Pulsar or one of those premium bikes. So like 40% of people who take loan from you are like new to credit. Like you said, 40% is home visit. This would typically mean they don't have a bureau score.
No, it's more than that. It's about 60% are new to credit. It's not that all new to credit we visit the house. Okay. So yeah, see, it's almost 60%.
Okay. So if the income proof is like reliable, then you don't need to visit.
Yeah, that's there. Reliable is there. Or he gives a co-applicant. Or if there is one of the big advantages of doing in a rural belt is that most of the people have their own houses. Okay. And it's very easy to get the own house proof. So we have developed over a period. Now, what happens there is that, see, I'm coming to buy a bike and I say that I have my own house. But actually, the house is not in your name. It's actually your grandfather's. Okay. And you are staying in a joint family wherein you are also one of them. Now, if I'm able to first prove that this guy has a connection and he's a grandfather, and I'm able to prove that that document is genuine through the online, there are a lot of online verifications which you can do, then I don't need to visit his house. Okay. So it's proven that, and it's our own house. So we get a lot of comfort from own house because then it gives a kind of stability. So the challenges of doing business in Eastern UP is actually a little lesser than the challenge of doing business in Bangalore, actually. And I'm very happy that people don't do it. So it's good for us.
Yeah, that's amazing that there's so many people you're bringing into the credit network, giving them a credit score. Amazing.
Exactly. And that's where I think the banks are getting interested in doing co-lending along with us because they feel that then this is a product which you tested it out and now the customer has done it. Now you can actually give a other loan and all that. And it's a very the other thing which I wanted to say is that sometimes people ask me that, are you not like an MFI loan? Actually, it cannot, it's very different, the MFI loan, from the way it is procured to the way it is collected and all that. And we have seen this. We have seen MFIs trying to do two-wheeler business and really not succeeding because the collection pattern is very different. Okay. It is not, of course, it's not a group thing. And you're not dealing with women, mainly you're dealing with men now. Yeah. And so the collection is very different here.
And what is your collection strategy? What do you do if someone doesn't pay? What does that piece of the business look like?
Yeah. So I think there are two parts to this business. One is that how do you buy credit? Okay. And the second is how you collect. Now, so normally in every business, this needs to be balanced actually, that you buy good credit, then you collect also very well. Okay.
Buy credit, this term refers to like giving loan to good.
Giving loan, yeah, sorry. This is a typical industry terminology. This is the first thing I asked when I joined Bajaj Auto Finance. I said, what is this buy credit? So basically you're giving a loan. Okay. When you're underwriting a loan, say for example, so in the two-wheeler business, if you cut the thing very, very fine, you may end up with having hardly any customers then. So it's essentially a collection-led business. Okay, it's more collection-led business. And it is not as if the customer doesn't have intention to pay, but the customer is a customer who may miss certain payments. Okay. And as I said, even if you have a NAC mandate, the check may bounce, the NAC will bounce, and you need to collect smartly so that it is doing it. So you need to create a good collection infrastructure. And at Bajaj, we had a outsourced collection infrastructure, but somehow that's one thing which we didn't pick up from Bajaj. We did it a little differently here. Most of our collection is in-house actually, and there's a lot of advantage of having an in-house collection, as COVID proved also to us, is that you are able to actually know exactly what's happening to the customer. Remember that you sell only once, but you collect over 24 months. So yeah, so you need to be in touch with the customer, and if you have your own team on the touch, you are able to touch base very well with the customer. You know exactly what's happening to him. So we have a bounce, and the bounce gets collected at almost a 96% efficiency. Okay, and you still have customers who will flow to the next bucket, and then the next bucket, and then at some stage you may have to repossess the vehicle. So if you are repossessing the vehicle, it's a very well thought of decision that you need. That either the customer is having major issues or he doesn't have intention to pay. So you repossess the vehicle, and then you use agencies, but you control the process very tightly. You ensure that you follow legally all the steps. You first ensure that you're assessing the right vehicle, etc., and all that. So those are trade secrets. We do a good job of it. And so I think that's it. So if you look at it, 50% of my manpower, or more than that, actually, I think 50% of more than 50% is actually in collection.
And this would be like call center, like this, or on ground, like
All types. So what happens is that the moment is it's like an army led operation. On the first of the month from the first of the month to 8th of the month, the call center will be calling. Basically, these are customers who have normally always bounced their payments but have paid you. So you know that he's going to bounce anyway. So why are you waiting for the bounce? Actually, okay? Don't have to wait. Okay? You call. You can walk into this Airtel counter and pay. We are tied up with Airtel Bank. Yeah, you can do all that. So you can do all. So you do that. Then on the 8th of the month, we bank, and by 10th we get the bounces, and then the whatever remains then moves to our field team now. So then they start. Then first to it, the field team is busy collecting the older areas. So there's a cycle which gets followed. There's a full org structure behind it. That's the reason I said that we can do 7,000 crores tomorrow if we want. We've created the entire structure for that.
the playbook is there, easy to scale now.
The playbook is there. The people are also there actually. So we need to only create foot soldiers, as we go ahead. So that's.
So after that first fundraise from LUR, how did you fund it subsequently?
So we did a second round of funding. I think it was in 2018. Okay, where a new investor came in along with LUR, an investor called Fairing Capital. So Aditya Parekh, who's the son of Deepak Parekh, he's on the board of our company. So they invested in the company, and now we are just in the midst of our third fundraise, external fundraise. We have just tied up, but enough is to say is that we are raising close to about 240 crores. Okay, and so it's a combination of existing investors and a couple of new investors who are coming.
And this is all equity funding. Are you taking debt out?
No, this is equity, but you can't run the company only on equity. So debt is a continuing process. Okay, and so debt is a continuous process. And like I think if you look at our balance sheet till now, we must have borrowed at least about 450 odd crores. So it is you need to, otherwise this business will not make money. You have to have a 1:3, 1:4 kind of a debt to equity ratio. You need to do that. And that's where you keep on improving your operations, your credit ratings, then bringing down the cost of funds. So that process takes time actually.
How much does debt cost you, and at what is your average interest rate when you give out a loan?
Yeah, in the sense that usually if you look at the entire cost structures, in the sense, it's a very small ticket loan. The average ticket size is about 60,000 rupees for a new vehicle. And for second hand, it's still further down, so 35,000. So the percentages sometimes don't make sense because they look a little bigger. So you lend at about 21 to 23%, and some amount of processing fee you charge. And you are able to borrow at about % debt actually. So that's what you're able to do. So the rest is used for operations and all that thing.
Okay. And what is your NPA ratio like?
So in this business, you can expect an NPA at a very matured level of business, anywhere between 5 to 6% gross NPAs, but your actual losses will be around 3%.
Okay, because you can repossess the vehicle and
you can repossess, you can collect, and you can do all sorts of things. So that's it. But we are today operating at less than, at the peak of COVID, as I said, we reached 6.8. Today we are operating at 4.4 or 4.5 or something like that.
So do you want to go? There are two founders I have recently interviewed, and they are also in the two-wheeler space. So I don't know if you have time to answer this one more question.
Sure.
But so one approach is the Credar approach, where they are saying that we want to focus our energy on acquisition, like acquiring used bikes, because if we acquire, the buyers are there. And that is their primary focus, that how do we scale up acquisition of used vehicles, and therefore they spend money on digital marketing and other ways so that anyone looking to sell a bike sells it to them, which I thought was an interesting perspective. And then I also interviewed Auto Capital, and so they are doing like a leasing that why do you need to buy a vehicle? Just take it as a subscription and pay us a subscription fees and all. So which of these models seems appealing for you to pursue going down, or do you want to do something different or a mix of both?
So I would say that we are a full-scale two-wheeler company now. So leasing is one of our products. Okay, so it is not. So leasing is, I would say, one of the product, and we feel that leasing is going to be very important, mainly on two kinds of products. One is the product has to be an expensive product. Okay, usually I've not seen leasing working on a commuter product. So it will work on a bullet or it will work on something like that. And if you have the appetite, then it will definitely work on Ducatis, etc. But that's very dicey. So don't want to get into that territory really. But I would say that leasing a bullet or leasing a Pulsar or leasing a KTM is something which we already do. So it's part and parcel of a business model. It's just one more financial model. So that's there. The second is that when we're talking about our marketplace, and is that I think both are important. Buying and selling both are important, and even servicing is important. See, unless you control the entire chain of this. And when you're also financing the product, so you're already at the dealership, your exchange becomes so much easier. So it is like an integrated approach that we are taking here. We built our finance company first, and because that is the most crucial thing. All of this, the whole world runs around the finance actually, this entire thing. And then we are now adding these elements which will complete the entire cycle of the product. So I would say that our model is pretty much an integrated model, especially when you are talking to a dealer. When I talk to a dealer and say that, look, I'm financing a product, can I also start exchanging in your vehicles? For you, for him, it becomes a solution in itself. And then when I tell the dealer that why don't you just open a small showroom and actually start selling these bikes? I'll help you to do it, basically. So it adds not only some income to him, and he doesn't have unrealistic expectations on the income, because for him, it's an add-on income. But he knows that if he does that, his sale of new vehicles will go up. So I think all these things are tied with each other. So it is difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible. I would say that breaking this into pieces and doing one part of it is good. Maybe tomorrow you can become an acquisition target then. For somebody who doesn't have it. But I don't think we are building our company for acquisition. We are building it for something else altogether.
But is acquiring supply something you want to do aggressively? Like anyone selling should know that, okay, I should sell through Bike Bazaar.
I don't understand the word aggressive. So I think we will buy what makes business sense, actually. Okay. And I think burning cash is no longer an option for anybody, actually. You can have different profitabilities of the bike. Since we sell the bikes also, we know exactly at what value you should buy it actually. Sometimes it's better to walk away from the deal rather than do the deal. See, one of the things that I have seen which makes me a little worried is that huge amount of inventory is piling up about people who are buying very aggressively. It's a worrisome thing because it's a perishable commodity.
The moment the year changes, the value depreciates.
All that is there. And finally, if you go back, and I have a lot of respect for the second-hand dealer fraternity. They have been doing this business for donkey's years. And I'm struggling here to value the bike. I'm using tech. I'm using that. This guy just on a phone call, he's able to give a quotation and he's able to hold the bike and he's able to sell it. So if you have to do a deal with him, I don't think that you will be able to do a very, very good deal actually.
So essentially the dealer remains your primary partner whom you want to empower.
I think so. In one way is that it's a business wherein you should use the ability of a businessman. I would like to multiply my entrepreneurship journey into thousands of entrepreneurs. Okay, because that adds the boost and that adds the volumes to me really. Because what an entrepreneur can do, trust me, it will be very difficult for an employee to.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
And our franchisees, we do not take a franchisee unless he puts in at least 5 lakh rupees as a deposit with us. Because we believe that if your money is not in the business, we don't give credit. So if your money is not there in the business, then you do not do the business actually. You're not in business.
Yeah, you're not an entrepreneur if you don't have skin in the game.
It is table stakes. And when we started Wheels EMI, we as promoters, we put in our own money first. So we went. So when we went to the market, we told them that we put our money, and I think that helped us actually a lot. And in this round also, we are putting our own money again.
The long-term path for you is an IPO?
I don't know. I don't know whether IPO or whatever. So whatever makes sense at that time. Anyway, we are still a good 4-5 years away from whatever we want to do. Okay. So whatever makes sense at that time, we will see. Everything is open. So we don't know how the business models are going to shift. One thing I've realized in life is never predict anything actually.
Yeah, we don't know how EVs will change the market now, but I suspect EVs would really work well for leasing, especially the gig workers would be happy to do a pure lease-based EV acquisition.
But yeah, it will work well with leasing, but it is not as simple. It will be leasing along with doing something with the battery also. So by the pay per use, leasing is a straightforward. It's no different than financing. I essentially don't see any difference at all. There is just a residual value. This doesn't have a residual value. That's all. Now, here, what residual? So tell me, in the EV, what residual value will put? If the battery goes away, the residual value is nothing. Okay, so leasing is equal to financing. So, so I think maybe there'll be a new name for it. It'll be almost pay.
Maybe like a long-term rental, like essentially.
Yeah, it's like that. So pay per use kind of a thing, or you actually lease the bike and don't lease the battery. Okay, you lease the bike and rent the battery. So all those kind of things, people are doing these kind of models and all that. So I think, but again, I don't think you cannot do this unless you have a good distribution network. And that's what we are building actually. A tech company enabled by a distribution network is what is going to make the difference.
Do you see EVs as being a bigger part of your lending, like the revenues going forward, or do you think it will be IC?
I don't know. Frankly, if anybody today is able to answer that question, we should go back after 5 years and ask them. So let me do this way that I don't want to predict the market, but I want to be prepared. Okay. So today in our company, we have a separate vertical which handles EV. So the EV is handled by a separate set of people. We are very interested in doing all kinds of experiments. We are about to finance 50 odd vehicles wherein we are actually not financing the vehicle. We are financing the kit and the battery, the kit which converts the vehicle and the battery. Okay. So so we want to try all this out. We want to pilot all this. We want to keep in mind certain learnings are already there. And so that you're prepared, and today we are consistently doing 300, 350 numbers of EVs every month, anyway, normal financing that we keep on doing. Okay. So we have already got experience. We have repossessed vehicles. We have sold vehicles. We have done all of that. So I think, so really it doesn't matter. If the market completely becomes EV also, we are ready. So we're there.
Do you see a role of IoT in EV, in the EV business? Because you could track where the vehicle is, how much it's being used, and for repossession also it will help. Or you could even do something like just disable the vehicle if the installment is missed and things like that through a IoT.
Sure. In fact, we developed an IoT for IC engine vehicle in I think it was year 2007. I had developed an IoT for.
Oh, wow. Okay. Within Bajaj.
Yeah. So, IoT, but of course, we never used much of it. But IoT definitely will help. And IoT will, especially IoT will become mandatory after a period of time for doing this kind of things.
This is like a follow-on conversation. And since we last spoke, you raised a pretty big $20 million round. I just thought we'd add some of that in the show to make it more topical. So tell me about that.
Yeah, okay. Yes, we did raise that money in the bank situation now. And we have a new investor who has joined the cap team. And it's a company called Women's World Bank based out of New York. The mandate of Women's World Bank really is actually to fund companies which are predominantly doing business with women, in the sense that basically giving loans or empowering women in any which way that they could. And I think this is the first time that they have, I think, invested in a two-wheeler company. And we have actually for a long been saying this, that Women on Wheels is actually a very empowering kind of a project that one can have. Almost 26% of two-wheeler riders are women now. And I have personally seen this even in smaller towns, also smaller villages now. Women are riding quite a lot. And this is really directly related to the fact that they are able to further their education, they're able to do more business, they're able to have employment. So I would say that a two-wheeler is the quickest way of empowering women in India today. And in fact, when we are looking at electric vehicles today, I see that the percentage of women who are buying electric vehicles is more than the percentage of women who are buying IC engine vehicles. So they are also taking to electric in a big way. And I think it's very topical. We're happy that Women's World Bank has come in and invested in our company. And so our entire engagement with them is more than just receiving money. It's more also engaging them with programs as to how we can get more and more women to ride on two wheels.
So would you be like subsidizing for women, or would you like just create more marketing and communication and make it easier for women to buy?
So subsidies are never a big answer to this. I think while yes, we are running programs where there are certain discounts when a woman borrows from us. So I wouldn't say that they're highly subsidized, but there is a difference in the rate. There's a difference in the processing fee. There's more to encourage women to actually borrow and ride. But I think more important for us is to run specific programs on certain categories, and here also we are looking at really the bottom of the pyramid. So we are looking at professions like beauticians, women who actually come to your home and do the beauty makeups.
Yeah, like the urban lab partners.
Yeah, Urban Clap. We have quite a few of beauticians who borrow from us. We are looking at women like the women who are in the healthcare sector, whether they are nurses, whether they are ASHA workers. So I would say that category wise, run programs for them.
Are you directly collaborating with platforms like Urban Lab? That could be an interesting unlock.
No, not really, not directly collaborating with them, but I think we have actually funded quite a few of women who are actually in Urban Clap. And so word of mouth has spread and people do come to us directly.
And what valuation did you raise at, if you are at liberty to share?
So the fundraise is still not over. We have another 80 odd crores coming into the company, hopefully in the next 2 or 3 months time. We're very close to closing that also.
So my last question to you, what is your advice to our listeners who are considering entrepreneurship?
So it's not as if that I have seen it all, done it all kind of a thing. And every journey is very different and can't have a template really. But one or two things I would definitely say is that Josh ke saath hosh. I don't know if you that understanding in Hindi, and let me just translate that. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm and there's a lot of energy, and that is required. Without energy, you can't be an entrepreneur, and you have to have a lot of belief in yourself. A bit of madness you should have, but along with that, you also should have some kind of a logic, some kind of a. I see a lot of times now business models are not completely vetted out. The day that you depend only on valuation is gone. I mean, if you do not have a business model which shows profitability, if you do not have a business model which shows, that there is a revenue stream which is coming in, then it's very difficult to raise money and it will not sustain. So pure tech without business, I think those days are gone. So that's there. The other is that choose your co-founder or co-promoter very well. Skills should not be similar. Skills should be quite supplementing each other. I see a lot of time it's the same skill sets which all the co-founders bring in, and that becomes difficult many a times. So this is the second piece of advice. And third is that don't lose heart. It's a tough journey many a times. Yeah, have grit, and the earlier you start, the better it is. That's what I would say. I started very late in my life, but yeah, I wish I had done that earlier.
Though that came with its own set of advantages. I'm sure you did not have to make so many mistakes, and the scale up, you would have understood the playbook for scaling up.
I would say yes and no. Yes, in the sense that we always thought about scale right from day one, and no, in the sense maybe we are a little conservative. Maybe we should have been a little more aggressive. So that's there. But yeah, I would say that we have a very young team also, having said that, along with us, and we have our investors who are very young. So I think we have a good mix right now.
If you like the Founder Thesis podcast, then do check out our other shows on subjects like marketing, technology, career advice, books, and drama. Visit thepodium.in, that is thepodium.in, for a complete list of all our shows.